Hello, this is Mellowtron11. You may have heard my voice in the previous M4-78 documentary, and on some of Darth Varkor's KOTOR machinimas. Now it's time to weigh in on the older 1.3 mod. Before playing this mod, I did not know anything about the actual M4-78 maps, aside from reading Scorchy's brief M4-78 walkthrough on the LP Archive website, and watching a very brief video on the original Droid World mod from YouTuber The Princess J a long time ago. Basically, I went in blind for this mod playthrough. At a first glance, the M4-78 maps are really nicely designed with its details. You can see rusted rivets on some walls, the twirling bars on some doors when they unlock, and the lattice floor grates over molten metal in the industrial zone. There were even more droid types that also made an appearance in this mod, which was neat to see more in-game assets being used. The best looking parts of the planet to me were the scrolling numbers in the Archon chambers and the computer monitors in the research and development section of the industrial zone. Chris Parker, KOTOR 2's producer, did say that while it was good to remove the M4 planet during KOTOR 2's production, the decision to cut said planet did hurt the planet's designer, Kevin Saunders.
You right now sound great. It's just by far the worst voice acting the mod has to offer, and it's hard to...
With the amount of detail that went into the M4 map designs, I can see why Mr. Saunders would have been sad to see his hard work go to waste. Since this was the third version of this mod and not the final version, I did encounter some bugs and glitches in the game. LS65 had a few lines stringing out from his model when he walked around in the central zone. Perhaps this was my own computer, but from a distance, metallic textures like droid torsos became a dull green color in the fog in the first part of the mod. Unfortunately, I did not know that the M4-78 fog fix mod existed until I got done with the mod. I also had one instance of blaster bolts clipping through the walls halfway through the many droid fights in the environmental zone. Lastly, this is probably my own computer, but occasionally the frame rate would lag a little bit in the later portions of the industrial zone. There were also some voiceover inconsistencies as well. Droid IS-02 had two mismatched voice lines from what sounded like another VO artist, and the Sith Captain VO was cut short in its holo recording. Both Ka and Vash did have occasional lines that didn't trigger lip-syncing during their final conversations, which can likely be attributed to the trouble with lip-syncing for KOTOR mods. And some of the more generic droid characters like the Central Control Mark I droid and the Environmental Zone droid could have benefited from having some type of filter on their voices, just for consistency's sake. As for the quest implementation, I did hit a couple snags. When told to look through the trash droids, I misinterpreted the command as looking around to find a trash compactor to sift through. And then I realized you had to check out the cleaning droids themselves. Whoops! The power station puzzle in the central zone was probably the most aggravating quest to do, as I thought I had done the proper instructions for turning the stations on, off, and then I turned the two opposite stations back on, but still nothing happened. From what I read from YouTube and Reddit comments, I wasn't the only one who had issues with that quest. A lot of backtracking and foot travel was very prevalent in this version of the mod. Force speed became your friend really quick. I'm glad to see that the mod developers answer that complaint in the 1.5 mod, where the readme says there is less running around. The escort droids around the map were a nice touch in that regard. It's always nice to see the developers respond to community feedback. How much did I think the modders made of M4-78? Actually, a lot given the maps and leftover files on hand. I imagine there was some semblance of an outline left in the game files, and that allowed the modders to craft their story. How much was left in the game files? Obviously, there were a bunch of unused droid models, and two of the M4 maps were rather large.
Hello, B44.
The Industrial Zone and Environmental Control Zone map sizes are rather impressively sized for the Aurora game engine. I wonder if one of the reasons this storyline got cut was because the large map size would have been too taxing for the current PCs and Xbox consoles of the day. As for story, however, I do think there was a basic outline with a beginning, i.e. the droid scouting mission, but nothing more and no ending to speak of. Scorchy's LP Archive playthrough indicates there were no player-generated responses to the dialogue with the Archons, so to me, that indicates there wasn't much of an ending left over. The plot was decent, but not stellar. It was nice to see Master Vash's dialogue on breaking force bonds finally get implemented in the game. I always thought that part of dialogue was kinda crucial to KOTOR 2, and it's a shame they left it out. The mod starts off slowly as one of your droid companions explores the planet to shut down the radiation. Then there's a bit of running back and forth, but after you help out the trash droids, then the story starts picking up with a better balance of exploration, conversation, and combat in the second half of the industrial zone and the environmental zone. However, I do think that the light side ending with Ka's death was really forced and just rather silly. I was left scratching my head as to why Ka got gassed and gunned down on the way back to the Ebon Hawk. Master Vash's death also made some better sense within the story, as she didn't have too much dialogue in the game files to begin with. Still, I also feel that her death was really forced in at the end of this mod because of that dialogue limitation. What do I think of Ka's character? Ka's motivations start out pure, like many Jedi, but in his case, they quickly got tainted. He tries to keep the Sith at bay with conventional means initially, and when he realizes he and Vash are vastly outnumbered, he releases the radiation on the planet. Actually, I think this is the first time I've ever heard of nuclear radiation being used in a Star Wars story, so I wonder if the modders who wrote the story had been playing the Fallout series while writing this script. Ka gets driven to madness by the separation and supposed death of his master, which leads him to try to kill the Exiles party in the environmental zone. I think Ka's fall reinforces the doubts that some characters in KOTOR 2 like Zez Kyle, Kavar, and Kreia all have about the Jedi Order, that the Jedi aren't flawless just because of their Jedi code and ideals. As the old saying goes, the road to hell is often paved with good intentions. Heck, Ka actually has a light red tint to his character model if you view him with Force sight, someone not committed to the dark side, but he's still done some terrible things. If that doesn't sum up Ka's character, I don't know what else would. The main character voices for this mod all work out very well. Ka, ES-05, IS-02, IS-24, IS-56, the security droid, and M4-78 all have excellent voiceovers. If I had to pick one favorite though, ES-05 would be my pick. Her voice reminded me of Edie from the Mass Effect trilogy, which I think is a fitting comparison for her character. ES-05's voice is more calming, which fits her well-tempered personality and blue lighting. M4's voice, on the other hand, is more authoritative and slightly menacing as he contemplates the fate of the colony. Had M4 teamed up with the HK-50s, for instance, I feel the galaxy would have had an awful fight on their hands. As for the weaker voiceovers, most of them were for the generic or minor characters. These included the Central Control Mark I droid, Environmental Zone droid, Designer droid, Maintenance droid, and CS-28. That being said, I do want to back up my criticism with this. As an aspiring voiceover artist myself, I get that thinking what your voice might sound like in your mind or in your room is probably a lot different than how your microphone picks up your voice. And until I found the time in my work schedule to take a few acting classes at the local community college, I was fairly clueless as to how much work goes into acting. It's easy to think that acting is natural, but then you actually work on your script and realize it's not so easy as you think. Heck, my first couple of voiceover gigs weren't my greatest performances, but at the same time they were stepping stones on becoming a better voiceover actor. For those of you out there listening to this review, and you're not happy with the outcome of your voiceover for this mod, please don't despair. If you want to get more into this line of work, then consider taking a couple classes, buying a good microphone, and find a good mentor or community to help you move forward. Now for the final question. As for the mod's replayability, would I play it again? Possibly. The mod was fun to play despite the occasional bugs or a couple of poorly designed quests or puzzles. I'd love to play the current version of 1.5 at least once. According to the README file of the 1.5 mod, there's a lot less backtracking involved. I feel that now that I've played the mod once, it would be smoother sailing the next time around, as long as they fix that darn power station puzzle to get into the main Archon chamber. However, now that I'm done with college and I'm working full-time, I don't find as much time to do gaming anymore like I used to when I was younger. These days I'm usually working, exercising, or spending time with family and friends, and then doing some voiceover work and music on the side. It was a little tricky to get another KOTOR 2 playthrough under my belt this time to play the mod, but it was finally good to play M4-78 and see what the forums were talking about. I'm glad I can finally lay to rest the question of, what is the M4-78 mod like? Now, I have my answer. Thank you very much, everyone.